I was never the kind of person who likes silence, but lately, I'd found myself craving it. The city was too loud, the apartment too small, the people too present, always talking, always demanding something. Work deadlines, notifications, someone knocking on your door because you left the laundry in too long. Life chipped away at you in tiny, invisible pieces. I couldn't pinpoint when I started to feel hollow, but I was pretty sure it had something to do with the way my jaw hurt every morning, like I'd been grinding my teeth through dreams I didn't remember. So I did what people in movies do when they're on the edge of something they can't name. I got in the car and drove. It was a little past 11 when I crossed the city line. There wasn't a destination in mind, just the kind of wandering that felt adventurous, like maybe the road could scrape the clutter out of my head if I let it. I rolled down the window and let the late summer air rush in. It smelled like dust, warm asphalt, and dry grass. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. I hadn't planned on going far, just enough distance that I could look around and not recognize anything, a kind of curated escape. But the thing about driving at night is, time bends. Roads stretch longer than they should. Signs blur past without meaning. One turn becomes another, becomes a wrong exit, becomes headlights disappearing into darkness where the GPS starts stuttering. That's how I found it, or maybe how it found me. A turn I don't remember taking, a road I didn't recognize. Narrow, two-lane blacktop, no markings, no streetlights. My phone buzzed with a low, sour beep, the signal dead. No big deal. I figured it'd pick back up once I hit a real road again. But the road didn't end. It just kept going, curling through tree-lined stretches that felt increasingly unwelcoming. There were no houses, no signs of life, just mile after mile of old road that looked like it hadn't been used in years. I would have turned around, but there was nowhere to do it. The shoulders were narrow, the trees pressing in close, and honestly, something in me didn't want to stop. Not yet. I don't know if it was curiosity or stubbornness, but I kept going. That's when I saw the first road sign. It was old, wooden, crooked, barely visible until my headlights swept across it. Welcome to... The name had been scraped off or burned away, just black scorch marks where letters should have been. The wood around it was splintered, rotted in places. Beneath it, hanging by one rusted chain, was a smaller sign. You've been here before. I slowed the car to a crawl. I don't know why that gave me chills. Maybe it was the familiarity of it, how the phrase tugged at something in the back of my brain. That strange feeling when you walk into a place you've never been, but your body reacts like it remembers. Déjà vu's ugly cousin. I stared at the sign a moment longer than I should have, the engine idling, but eventually continued on. I didn't really have a choice, so I kept driving. About 5 minutes past the sign, the forest began to thin out. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden break, no clearing, just a slow loosening of the trees. The air smelled different now, older. Not like rot exactly, but like damp wood left too long in the dark. That was when I saw a glow, faint, amber yellow light cutting softly through the gloom, bending around the road's next curve. I followed it. A gas station sat alone on the edge of a long, shallow dip in the road. No nearby buildings, no parked cars, just a squat, one-story structure with a rusted overhang and a flickering neon sign that read, "Gas, food, cigarettes." Most of the letters buzzed weakly or blinked out entirely, but the G was especially frantic, sputtering like a dying insect. The place didn't look open, but the lights were on. One pump, old-fashioned analog dial, no card reader, just a worn sticker with peeling numbers and the faded phrase, "Pay inside." I pulled in without thinking. Maybe I was just relieved to see something man-made again. The road had started to feel too long, too empty. I told myself I just needed directions, maybe a snack, a bathroom, a few minutes to shake the weirdness out of my bones. I killed the engine. The overhead lights bathed the cracked concrete in a sickly yellow haze. Moths swirled in lazy spirals above the bulbs. Somewhere out in the trees, something let out a single shrill cry. Animal or bird, I couldn't tell. I stood outside the car for a moment. Then I walked toward the glass door. The bell above it didn't ring when I stepped inside. It just gave a soft clunk, like something had tried to ring and failed. The fluorescent lights hummed. I glanced around. Shelves half stocked with snacks from a decade ago. A refrigerator humming quietly in the corner, its contents obscured by condensation. A rack of faded tourist postcards, images of lakes and pine trees and deer, but no town name printed on them. Behind the counter sat an old man. He didn't move when I walked in, just sat there, eyes half-lidded, a newspaper open in front of him that he didn't seem to be reading. His face was weathered in the way you only get after decades of sun, his skin like folded paper, mouth thin and straight. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice polite, neutral. "Sorry to bother you. I think I might be a little lost." His eyes flicked up, not surprised, not curious, just noting me. "No bother," he said. His voice was thin and dry. I took a turn a few miles back, ended up on a road I don't recognize. Doesn't show up on my GPS. You know where I am? He studied me for a long time. "Don't get many folks out this way," he said. I waited for more. There wasn't any. "Right, but, is there a town nearby? A highway I can reconnect to?" He reached beneath the counter and pulled out something, a dusty paper map. He unfolded it slowly, with the careful, ceremonial movements of someone handling a relic. When he flattened it on the counter, I stepped forward to look. It was a state map, but old, maybe 30 years or more. Colors faded, edges curled, some areas rubbed nearly blank. He pointed with one knobby finger to an unmarked patch of road. "We're somewhere around here," he said. "Hard to say exactly." I squinted. "There's nothing there." He smiled, a crooked little thing that didn't touch his eyes. "Nope," he said. "Ain't that something?" The overhead lights buzzed louder for a second, then softened again. I straightened. "Well, thanks, I guess. I'll just keep going, should hit something eventually." "You will," he said, "one way or another." That gave me pause. I glanced back at him, eyebrows raised. "Sorry?" He folded the map again, slowly. "Road's funny out here. Loops where it shouldn't. Bends in ways you don't notice until you're too far in. You might feel like you're going forward, but you're not." I gave him a tight smile. "All right, well, thanks for the warning." He looked up again. This time there was something sharper in his expression. "You're not the first, you know," he said. "And you won't be the last." I stood there too long, unsure if I should respond. The air in the store felt heavier now. The lights dimmed just a fraction. Outside, the wind picked up. The moths scattered. Then he said, "You better get going. Won't do to stay too long." I turned to leave. My hand was on the door handle when he added, "Just remember where you are when the music starts. That's all." I turned back. But the man was looking down at his newspaper again, like he hadn't said anything at all. I got back to my car and slid back into the driver's seat. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I meant to. The old man's words still lingered. "You're not the first. You won't be the last. Remember where you are when the music starts." Cryptic old gas station weirdos. Classic road trip shit. That's all. I exhaled, shifted into reverse, and backed out slowly from the gravel lot, the tires crunching beneath me. I turned the wheel to face the road. Instinctively, I glanced over my shoulder, checking the way I'd come just a few minutes ago. But there was no road. I blinked. All I could see were trees, thick black silhouettes against the night, close together, unbroken. There was no opening, no trace of gravel or pavement, not even the faintest line of worn tire tracks. I stared, frowning. There was a real road here just minutes ago. A tight knot formed in my stomach. "Okay," I said aloud. "No turning back, I guess." The words felt strange as I said them. I faced forward. The road ahead was less maintained. Its edges crumbled into gravel and weeds, but it was still there, still leading somewhere. I didn't really have a choice, did I? So I drove. Every 100 feet or so, the canopy thinned enough for me to glimpse the sky, cloudless, moon-silver, hollow. Time warped again. I don't know how long I drove. 10 minutes, 30. There were no signs, no mile markers, no intersections. Just the road, endlessly unfolding ahead of me. And then, the trees began to space out. The road widened slightly. There were silhouettes now along the edges. Low buildings, fences, a mailbox leaning at an angle. A town. I slowed the car. There were houses clustered along a main stretch of road. Some brick, some wood. All of them small and quiet, old but not ruined. Their windows were dark, curtains drawn. No porch lights, no glow from behind glass. Not a single car in a driveway. The street was lined with old-fashioned lampposts, but none were lit. There was no chatter, no movement. Just the sound of my engine and the faint mechanical tick of my left turn signal, still blinking lazily as I passed a shuttered bakery. It was late, sure, but something felt off. I kept driving slowly, trying not to spook myself. Maybe it was one of those blink-and-you-miss-it towns, a dot on the map, the kind where everything closes at 9 o'clock and the locals sleep like the dead. But as I turned onto what looked like the main street, headlights swept across a figure standing directly in the middle of the road. I hit the brakes, not hard, just enough to slow to a crawl. The tires gave a soft whine as I came to a stop maybe 20 feet away. The beams framed him perfectly. An old man, thin, upright, hands folded neatly in front of him. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, bathed in artificial light, staring at me. Something about the way he stood bothered me. His posture was perfectly straight, head tilted just slightly, like he was considering me. His coat, dark and buttoned high to the neck, didn't rustle in the breeze. I couldn't see his eyes clearly from where I was. I lowered my window. "Hey," I called out. My voice came out quieter than I intended. "You okay?" No response. I leaned a little further. "You live here? I think I'm lost." Still nothing. I glanced down at my dashboard. No signal, no GPS. When I looked back up, he was still there. But now, he was smiling. Not a warm smile, not amused, just strange. Then, without looking away, he stepped silently to the side of the road. One smooth movement, and stopped, just outside the reach of the headlights. I hesitated. My instincts were screaming at me to drive. But there was a strange pressure in the air now, like I'd just stepped into the middle of something unnatural. I looked at him again. "Do you know where I am?" I asked. The man tilted his head slightly, as if hearing something from far away. Then he spoke, softly, calmly. "You're not the first," he said. "You won't be the last." My skin prickled. "What does that mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. His gaze shifted slightly to the sky, like he'd already forgotten I was there, or like he was waiting for something else entirely. I swallowed and slowly eased the car forward, rolling past him. As the beam swept across his body, he didn't cast a shadow. My eyes stayed on the rearview mirror long after I'd passed. The road behind me was empty. The man was gone. I drove on, slower now. My breath was shallow. The muscles in my shoulders pulled tight. The town felt darker somehow. No lights flicked on behind curtains. No dogs barked from yards. It was like the whole place was abandoned. My hands were clammy on the wheel. My brain kept searching for an explanation about the strange man. A prank, a sleepwalker, a weird local with dementia. But even those explanations didn't sit right. "You're not the first. You won't be the last." The words echoed in my head. On either side, houses drifted by in silence. Low, slanted rooftops, and paint faded to a uniform gray by time and disinterest. Some porches had old rocking chairs, others had nothing at all. A few were cluttered with broken toys or rusted grills, the detritus of lives that had either moved on or forgotten how to change. But no lights, no movement, no people. I kept driving. Each time I passed a corner or a narrow side street, I expected to see headlights, a passing car, a lit window, but there was nothing. That's when the stereo clicked on. I didn't touch anything. There was no sound at first, just the mechanical click of the old radio system powering up, the kind of soft snap you barely register if you're not paying attention. The display lit up on the dashboard, pale green digital numbers blinking as it searched for a station. Then, static, faint and distant, almost like breathing. It rolled over me in gentle waves. I reached out to turn it off. Maybe my elbow had brushed a button, but just as my fingers touched the knob, the static faded, and something else came through, a melody, soft, slow, a lullaby. I froze. It wasn't just any lullaby, I knew it, every note, every pause. My throat tightened, my hands pulling instinctively back from the dial. It was my mother's voice, humming. I hadn't heard that sound in over 20 years. She used to hum it to me when I had nightmares as a kid. It had no lyrics, just a pattern of soft notes, rising and falling. I never knew if it was something she made up or something she learned as a girl, but I'd never heard it anywhere else. Not in a song, not in a movie, just her. And now it was playing through my car stereo. But I didn't own any recordings. She died long before I could think of preserving anything like that. There were no tapes, no CDs, nothing. I stared at the stereo display. No track name, no artist, no signal, just CD00, blinking faintly. The humming continued, so familiar it hurt. The way she always did it, slightly off-key near the end. A kind of quiet sigh between refrains, like she was breathing in time with the rhythm. I pressed the eject button. The player clicked. Nothing came out. No CD. Just the click of an empty tray and silence. The music stopped instantly. I sat there in the dark with the engine running, breath shallow, heart working double time. Somewhere far behind me, a porch light flickered on for half a second, then went dark again. The silence returned. My eyes scanned the houses as I passed. Halfway down the next block, I saw one that stood out. The curtains were drawn tight, but behind them, a soft reddish glow bled through the fabric. Faint, unnatural. I slowed as I approached, squinting. There, just for a second, I thought I heard the lullaby again. From inside the house, a faint melody, the same notes, same rhythm, my mother's voice. And then, silence. I sat there for a moment longer, now just the steady idle of the engine, looking at the red glow behind the curtains. It wasn't bright, not a light exactly. It was dim, pulsing gently from behind thick, dusty fabric that looked untouched for years. The glow was too warm to be a TV, too steady to be a fire. It was inviting in a way that made me immediately suspicious. I decided to check it out. My hand moved to the door handle slowly. The interior light blinked on as I stepped out. I shut the door quietly behind me. My footsteps felt too loud against the cracked pavement. The house was old, 2 stories, white paint grayed by time. The front porch sagged slightly, wood splintered. The windows were all covered, dark, no lights, except for that one, the one with the red glow. I stood in front of the door for a long time. There was no doorbell, just a tarnished brass knocker shaped like an acorn, dangling loose in its mount. I raised it, let it fall. The knock sounded dull, dead, like the sound got swallowed before it could echo. No movement inside. I knocked again, feeling ridiculous. "Hello?" I called out. "Sorry, I'm not from here. I just need directions." Still nothing. I stepped down from the porch and walked along the narrow path toward the side of the house. A single square window faced a patch of dying hedges. The curtains behind it were old velvet, heavy, dark red, and that same strange light seeped around the edges. I hesitated, then leaned closer, cupping my hands against the glass to peer through a narrow gap in the curtains. What I saw made my throat tighten. A long dining table. Dozens of people sat around it. All men, all identical. The same man from the road. Older, thin, pale. Dozens of versions of him, some older, some slightly younger. Dressed differently, but unmistakably the same person. They sat in silence, heads bowed, hands folded, eyes closed, none of them moved. I watched for several seconds, too afraid to blink, waiting for something to happen, but it was like I was looking at a still photograph or a wax museum. And then, I swear, I saw one of them lift his head, just barely, not all the way, just a tilt of the chin, a twitch of attention. That was enough to make me stumble back. I stood there breathing too hard, the quiet around me suddenly hostile. It felt like I'd looked at something I wasn't supposed to see, like I'd pulled back the skin of the world and glimpsed whatever bones were underneath. I should have walked away. I should have gotten back in the car and kept driving, but something pulled me toward the front door. I didn't remember deciding to try the handle. I was just doing it, turning the knob, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. The door creaked open on its own weight. Inside, the house smelled like dust. The air had that museum-still quality, untouched. I stepped inside. No dining table, no red light, no people. Just a long, narrow hallway. Faint moonlight spilled through a few cracks in the boarded-up windows and through the main entrance. The floor creaked under my feet. A thin film of dust coated everything. Cobwebs clung to the corners. But even they looked staged, like a set designer's idea of what an abandoned house should look like. There was nothing in the living room, no furniture except a single high-backed chair facing the window, like someone used to sit there every evening, watching the world die slowly. And then I saw the red curtain again, hanging at the far end of the hallway, over a narrow doorway. It was the same material I'd seen from the outside. Velvet, heavy, drawn tight, and next to it a mirror, oval, wall-mounted, framed in black wood carved into patterns I didn't recognize. It looked new, untouched by dust. I moved toward it slowly. The hallway seemed to stretch the longer I walked. And then I looked into the mirror. Behind me, reflected perfectly, was the man, standing in the middle of the hallway. But when I turned around, nothing. I spun back to the mirror. Still there. Same man, same expression. His eyes were wide open, staring into mine. Close enough that if he reached forward, his hand would have pressed against my back. I turned to see no one was behind me and ran out of that house without looking back. The door to the house closed behind me with a quiet click. I didn't touch it. I stood on the porch for a long time, staring down at my shoes, at the warped wooden floorboards, at the chipped white paint flaking off the rails. My pulse thudded in my ears, loud and uneven. I exhaled and forced myself down the porch steps. But when I reached the street, my feet stopped. My car was nowhere in sight. I turned in a slow circle. The street was empty. A thought crawled across the surface of my mind, light and awful. You walked here, you never drove. No, that wasn't right. I remembered the drive. I remembered the man in the road, the gas station, the humming stereo. I remembered my hands on the steering wheel, the hum of the tires. But all I could see now were houses, sidewalk, shadows. I felt something give slightly under my heel. I looked down and saw a plastic button on the pavement, small, beige, cracked, the kind that falls off the seatbelt of an old car. I stared at it for a long time, then I picked a direction and started walking. The town didn't feel like a real place anymore. Eventually, I reached a corner. A crooked street sign, nearly swallowed by ivy, stuck out of the ground. Pine Street, it read, in faded green letters. It felt like something I should remember. I turned onto it instinctively. This part of the town was tighter, smaller homes stacked close together, windows sealed, lawns overgrown. I walked for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then the road ended, abruptly. No cross street, no curve. Just a jagged stop, like someone had erased the rest, and beyond it, forest. Thick, dark trees, branches overlapping like ribs. No path, no light, just dense woodland rising where a neighborhood should have continued. I turned around to retrace my steps. The houses were gone. The sidewalk was gone. Pine Street was gone. Behind me, where the houses had been just moments ago, was now a narrow dirt path, half swallowed by roots and vines. I stood frozen. My breath came shorter now, tighter, each inhale pulling against my chest. I wasn't confused. I wasn't disoriented. I was being moved, repositioned. Every instinct I had screamed that the place wasn't built like a town, it was built like a maze, a trap. Something designed to look real long enough for you to relax. I followed the dirt road. It curved like a snake. The further I went, the more the trees began to pull back, receding into a wide, soft clearing filled with golden weeds and brittle grass, bathed in moonlight. And there, at the very center of it all, was him. The man, seated on a warped wooden bench. He was calm, still, one leg crossed over the other, a paper bag of what looked like breadcrumbs resting on his lap. He was scattering them across the ground with a delicate movement, like someone feeding pigeons in the city square. Only there were no birds, just the flutter of movement in the grass, quick, sharp bursts, as if something was there, just outside of view. I stopped at the edge of the clearing. My mouth was dry. The man didn't look up. I didn't speak, not right away. I watched him for a moment, trying to reconcile the impossibility of his presence. I stepped closer. My shoes crunched gently in the dirt. Finally, I said, "Where am I?" He looked up slowly. His expression didn't change. Still that half smile. Still that cool, unbothered stare. "This is just where I am now," he said. I didn't understand. "This town," I said. "It's not on any map. My car's gone. The road I came in on is gone. What is this place?" The man tilted his head slightly, as if weighing my question like a stone in his palm. "It's what it needs to be," he said. "That's not an answer," I said. "It's the only one that matters. You've been following me, or no, you're everywhere." My voice was rising now, raw with exhaustion, fear, whatever else had been building in me since the moment I saw that burned-out sign. "What are you? What do you want?" The man blinked once, slowly. "You already know," he said. I shoved him, or tried to. My hands met something softer than flesh, like fog with bones, and for a moment I felt my arms pass through him too far, too deep, like I might fall in if I didn't pull back. I stumbled. He didn't. "You think you can just play with people like this?" I said. He smiled again, faint and patient. "Say something that makes sense," I snarled. "Look at me, stop smiling and tell me what the hell is happening." He did stop smiling, but he didn't speak. His face began to tremble. First a shiver in his lips, then a buzz in his cheeks. His eyes rolled slowly upward, eyelids fluttering like static, and his head began to vibrate violently, unnaturally. The skin blurred, the features distorted. He became a smear of motion and color, like a video buffer glitching at the edge of resolution. The sound he made wasn't human. It was inside me, like a shortwave frequency screaming through the bones of my skull. And then he reached out, both hands, and grabbed me by the shoulders. Pain lanced through me like a lightning rod driven into my sternum. Everything went white. Silence. Then cold. I blinked. The sky above me was pale blue. Not night, not moonlight, morning. My back was pressed to pavement. I was lying in a parking lot. The parking lot at the gas station. I sat up fast, dizzy. The world spun sideways. My chest hurt. My nose was bleeding. A thick metallic warmth running over my lips. My heart was racing so hard I thought it might shatter my ribs. I looked around, breath catching. The car was here, its door shut. Lights off, windows rolled up, parked neatly beside the pump like nothing had happened at all. The gas station was quiet. The neon sign above the roof buzzed faintly in the morning light. Birds chirped from somewhere off in the trees. I walked towards the gas station. The door's bell rang when I stepped inside. That alone almost made me laugh. After everything that had just happened, hearing that small, cheerful jingle felt like a punchline from a joke. The early morning sun poured through the front windows, soft and golden, bouncing off the glass fridge doors and casting long shadows across the floor. and behind the counter where I expected to see the old man from the night before stood someone else entirely. Young guy, early 20s maybe, buzzed hair, red polo shirt with a name tag that read, Caleb. He was chewing something and scrolling on his phone. I walked up to the counter, hands trembling slightly. My lip was dry with dried blood. I could still taste the copper in my throat. He looked up. "Morning," he said casually. "You all right, man? You look like hell." I opened my mouth and waited for the right words to come. They didn't. Instead, I asked, "Is the old guy here?" Caleb blinked. "Old guy?" "Yeah, older man, white hair, wrinkled. He was working last night." He frowned. "Nah, it was me last night too. Did a double shift. We don't have anyone that fits that description." I stared at him. "No," I said too sharply. "He was here. This one. I cut myself off because I didn't know what I was about to say. I remembered pulling in. I remembered the broken neon, the dust on the floor, the way the lights flickered. I remembered the map, the old man's eyes, his voice. "You're not the first. You won't be the last." "Look," Caleb said, a little more gently now. "You want a bottle of water or something? There's a bathroom in the back. I can grab you some tissues for your nose." I hesitated, then asked, "What's the next town over? Just out of curiosity." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Next town?" "Yeah, you know, the one down the road. About 15 minutes, maybe 20. Small. Houses all dark, kind of old-fashioned." His confusion deepened. "There's nothing out that way," he said. "Just back roads, woods, a couple old hunting cabins. Closest actual town is Briar Glen, but that's at least 45 minutes west." "No," I said softly. "No, I just came from there. It was all..." I stopped myself again. The words were rotting in my mouth. Caleb looked at me like he didn't know whether to be concerned or call someone. I stepped back from the counter. My legs felt hollow. "Never mind," I muttered. "I'm sorry. Thanks." He nodded slowly. "Get some rest, man." I stepped back out into the light. Birds were chirping in the tree line. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes as I walked to the car. I leaned against the hood, heart still drumming, and looked back at the gas station. And then something in my brain clicked. The man, the one behind the counter last night, the quiet, pale old man with the cracked map and cryptic warnings. His face, his posture, that flat, unreadable gaze. He was the same man, the one I saw standing in the road, the one at the dinner table in a house that no longer existed, the one reflected in the mirror behind me. I hadn't been speaking to some old attendant. I'd been speaking to him the whole time. From the beginning, he'd been waiting for me. I hopped in the car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time before turning the key. The engine came to life. I backed out slowly. Gravel crunched. The wheels found the road, and I pointed the car west. This time there was a road behind me. It stretched lazily through the thinning trees like it had always been there. And after a few miles, the back road bent gently into the edge of the highway. By the time I got home, I could barely speak. I told myself I needed sleep, food, a shower, but none of it mattered, not really, because the more I tried to put the experience behind me, the more certain I became that it wasn't the first time. "You've been here before." I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by half-empty bookshelves and boxes I still hadn't unpacked, and I started digging. I went looking for old photo albums, the ones my aunt had sent me after my mother's funeral 3 years ago. I hadn't opened them since. It took me hours to find it. A yellowing envelope tucked inside a cheap plastic binder. Most of the pictures inside were innocent. Beach trips, school recitals, birthday parties. All the stuff that grief makes harder to look at. But one photo stopped me cold. A dirt road, trees, and me, maybe 7 years old, standing beside a crooked wooden sign. Most of the lettering had faded, but it was unmistakable. "Welcome to," and below it, "You've been here before." I stared at the photo for a long time. I looked at my face, young, smiling, hand held tight by a woman standing just outside the frame. I could see her shoulder, the edge of her jacket. I knew that jacket. Mom. And the memory flickered, just for a second. Her humming, the lullaby, the one from the car stereo, from the window, from upstairs. I didn't have a recording, there'd never been one. But I remembered hearing it in the car, once, on a long road trip. A detour, she said, was just to see something. I remembered the way she looked when we passed through that wooded area. Sad, quiet. She said she'd been here before, but that didn't make sense. No one in my family remembered the trip. I called my aunt, asked if she remembered a small town, maybe north of Briar Glen, something out past the old logging routes. She didn't. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "you and your mom never went north. You were scared of the woods. You always said you got weird dreams when you were near them." I didn't argue, just hung up and stared at the photo again. That evening, I drove to the university library and found the newspaper archive terminal about dead towns and forgotten places. And after hours of scrolling, there it was. Mass disappearance in northern logging community, town evacuated, erased from records. No photos, no survivors, just a name that had been blacked out in pen by a previous researcher, and a line in the article that made the hair on my arms rise. Locals have long reported strange occurrences in the area, sightings of the same man in multiple places at once. Rumors persisted of a lingering entity capable of mimicking the familiar to lure people deeper into the woods. Officials refused comment. There was a date, June 1997. I was 7 years old. I returned to the photo one more time that night, turned it over. There, scrawled in faint, uneven crayon in my own childhood handwriting, I said I'd never come back.